What's going on, movie and TV fans? Episode 8, the season finale of The Changeling is here, and WTF. Like, for real, for real. Someone literally let the dogs out after watching it, and I really don't know what happened this episode. I found it really confusing about what was going on, especially when connecting it to the other episodes, episode 7, episode 6. Now, I did feel like it did pick up and was possibly originally the last part of episode 5, and I would have appreciated if they had just connected that there instead of cutting it and making it its own episode, because the feedback was it was too short. The episode was only 30 minutes and it picked right up from where we last saw Apollo outside the window talking to William, or who we found out was Kindergarten. I found it really confusing about what was going on because we didn't see anything. It was a lot of running. It was a lot of shouting. It was chaos. It was chaos, and I could definitely feel the chaos in the episode. But there just weren't enough clues that something like this was going to happen. Now, look, I'm all for the mysticism, the violence, and the rage, creatures, fantasy foes, or whatever. But at least let me know so I can be prepared. So my biggest questions were, what did William turn into? Who are the 10,000 men? Did the other women and children make it back to the main island? What was the thing that jumped in the water? What was the thing that was flying over the trees? Did Cal really die? What bit Apollo when he went to the grave? And what was that huge eye we saw? And then, of course, the last one, was any of this real? We don't know. So if this is your first time joining, I'm the Movie Guru. Please make sure you like and subscribe so I can continue to make movies and shows reviews like this, and I can continue to give you guys that good guru content. So first off, it's obvious. Episode 8 and 5 were one episode edited into two. And like I said, they should have left it like that together. It went into episode 6, Aftermath, Emma's journey, and then we found out what she had did. And then it ended up with episode 7, and we found out what the mom did, with Lillian explaining what happened to Brian West. And then it would have made sense to just have one more episode showing Emma and Apollo, the Central Park, and maybe giving some closure and not being like the rest of these shows, with leaving us with, of course, a cliffhanger. Because, of course, we love them as a couple. We love them as husband and wife. We don't like them as this convict witch combination that they got going on. And we want to see baby Brian get back. And since, I didn't really know what I saw this episode because they didn't show or foreshadow or lead up to this. So I'm going to talk about what we did see and what I thought were the biggest mysteries here. So number one, what did Emma see in the forest? Unlike the witches on the Invisible Witch Island, Emma, I believe, has real magical powers. And I believe this is connected to her third wish. I did say that I believe her third wish was that she wanted to be some sort of sorceress. And we've seen clues of this in the previous episodes. In episode 6, I thought she was extremely athletic for a librarian, should I say. And then also, she was levitating in one scene in the alley when she was running after she put the phone down. And then we've seen her glow blue numerous times. And in this episode, we saw her eyes blue. Because she has these powers, this is why she'll be able to get Brian back, where the other women in the story were not able to get their kids back, and who we found out through this episode that they were called witches. They are not witches. So the story confirmed that they had to just, the witches, the women who lost their kids, their one kids to the Changeling, they pretty much connected online, found Cal, and pretty much went to the island to sit, soak, and grieve on what had happened and get away, because the women are convicted kid killers and they're on the run, just like how Emma was. Now, when Emma gets to Central Park And when she gets to the forest with the Norwegian trees, the book reappears. And we hear the quote, a baby is a dream made real, but dreams are fairy's favorite meal. And they kind of went a little bit more into the poem instead of just those first couple of pages. And it says that, the young one is gone, but they'll never know, in its place a thing without life. And so we haven't heard that before. And then when it said, in the woods, there's a party in the dark, past the horses, the guests are dressed smartly, and a couple more lines. But the full, I guess, rhyme, nursery rhyme to the fairy tale tells you what happened to the kid, who took them, and then where the kids, I guess, end up at. But I'm guessing that the other mothers never knew that part. And so I really thought they were going to, show baby Brian, maybe on one of the horses on a fairy's lap, or some sort of, smoke fairy on the merry-go-round, but we didn't. But we did hear the baby cry, so we knew she was getting close to something. We just don't know what. Also, at that time, Emma's eyes turned blue. And then we get this kind of dual shots where you see both Emma and Apollo say that they were coming for you. Apollo in reference to coming for Emma, and Emma in reference to coming for Brian. And then they both mean they coming for Brian as well. So I thought it was, as far as that show, it looks great. You can really see and feel the turmoil that Emma's going through. I thought it was interesting. They just didn't show us enough, but it just leaves more questions, of course. So what do you guys think about what we saw, Emma in the forest, in the merry-go-round? It was literally like 3 minutes. It was really short. So the next thing is, what is the we are kindergarten thing? Okay, this guy William just transformed literally, in a couple of seconds into this monster. And he explains that he's not a person, it's we, and they gave him his name. There was a lot of pronouns being thrown around of how he identifies. And it seems like he identifies as 10,000 men with one name seemingly on the dark web. And so we get this other scene off of the island of what looks like Brian in front of a computer, in front of a screen with different, boxes with different people with their face covered, looking at a camera of what could be some sort of underground passage, preferably, probably on a dark web. And we see what looks like, this soundproof room, but we don't know anything or if that was even him because, rewinding to the island, there was the big fight. And I'll talk about the fight later, but we saw him, what looked like him, take his last breath on the island. Cal, really got the best of him. And I really liked that scene. I did feel like Cal could have brought just a little bit more energy going into it, because Apollo was like, what are you going to do? And she was like, I'm going to show him my fangs. And it kind of made me feel like she was going to have some sort of witch power or, turn into some sort of creature. And it was going to be like this whole, King of the Monsters battle on the cliff, in this scene. But it definitely was a bloody battle, I'll say. And Cal came out victorious. And I thought Cal was gone, but I'm guessing that it wasn't Cal. Or the show was doing what they do. They replaced characters with other characters that look like characters that we know from episode 7, the Lillian episode. So then, the scene cuts to Apollo. And so now we see Apollo, he's digging up Brian's grave. And according to the caption, there was like a baby cooing inside the casket. And when he opens it up, I feel like he looks terrified. He motions to place his hand into the casket and something bites him. Now the captions say the creature growls and we hear a sound bite. I think in this scene, Apollo finally sees the changeling for himself. And also they did a quick transition with a scene where Emma said that soon you'll see. And so this is that moment. But this just gives us more questions like, how did it get there? Because we saw the scene in the earlier season where Apollo was talking to the landlord, and the landlord was explaining how he went to his apartment and how he saw the baby. He said a prayer right there. And so she, from what we know, killed the baby that we thought was Brian, or we know as a changeling. And if she did, pour hot water on it, bash his head in, cut him into bits, put him in a small suitcase or whatever she did, did the baby regrow? How is it alive in this casket buried 6 feet deep? Or is it something that only when they look at the baby, they see the baby when it's really not a baby? And is that why other people were screaming at them as they walked past, like, that's not a baby, because what they're holding was not a baby, but it was on, to other people, but to them it was their son. So I don't know if that was kind of like a glamour that it had, but the baby was alive in the casket, bit his finger, and then another scene where Apollo is crawling through this tunnel. Now, from the way it transitioned, it looked like he opened the casket, and then at the top of the casket there was a tunnel, and he just crawled through the casket into this tunnel. I don't know if that's what he did, because it just transitioned so fast. It just showed him finger being bit, and then him in this tunnel. So we don't know where this tunnel was, but assuming that the tunnels are connected to the caskets, and so he's going through this tunnel, and then that's when they show William, aka Kindergarten, watching on the cameras. But it kind of is hard to describe, because it's like, is it two cameras, and was each camera Apollo's eyes, or did Apollo have a GoPro, or was this even at a different time? Like, we don't have any type of answers. But they never hinted at anything big like this. Like, one of my other videos, I knew something was going on with William, but I kind of just thought he was a vampire because he took that beating. It didn't hurt him. He was kind of changing his voice and showing his face. He was showing his fangs pretty much. But so anyway, Apollo climbs to the end of the cave, and an eyeball opens up, and the caption says a snarling. And this was kind of the same sound and noise we heard from the island, for whatever it was flying around, literally shooting firebombs into the buildings on the island and blowing them up. And so my only guess was that it was a fire-breathing dragon. Now, there are dragons in fairy tales, and guessing that was it. But it's hard to conceptualize it, because the scenes that we did see of whatever this entity was in episode 7, it kind of looked like fluid. It kind of looked like a blob of some sort of energy or some dark material. And even in the beginning of the first episode, when they said that, the ship in 1825, the reason it made it was because it had help. And we can see something attach itself to the ship at two positions, either front or the rear, but we don't know if it was two hands or if it was like, it's like I said, it looked like ribbons or some sort of fluid. But guessing that whatever the picture was, it was motion blurred, so we couldn't tell. So it goes into my next question. Was it a dragon? Now, when Cal and Apollo were climbing down the rope, the creature, or whatever it was flying overhead. We could hear the wings flapping and roaring, and this was the same sound we heard when presumably we saw its eye in the cave. Now, I tried as hard as I could to get a picture of it, but it just wasn't coming out. I rewound and stopped and rewound and stopped. But there was some sort of blur on the claw cutting the rope. But we could see it was a large claw, and it swooped down from above and it cut the rope. But when we heard the wings flapping above, it was kind of in the darkness, and when it was moving, it kind of just moved the trees. So I know this isn't Lost, but it was giving the Lost smoke monster vibes. So I don't know. Then when the rest of the witches got to the boat, we see a thing. I don't know if this is the thing or if it was more than one. It jumped from the top of the cliff into the water. And Cal says the big one can swim. So there's a big one, small one, medium-sized one. There's an average one. Like, what is it? What are they? And is it a mass of 10,000? Like, what is it? Now, Cal said people call them witches, and here's where we confirm that they're not self-proclaimed witches, but that is a moniker that has been put on them. And I really think she just meant to replace the W with a B, but she didn't. But she explained that they are women who did this. She explained that they are women that did what seemed impossible, and we get a little foreshadowing when Cal says the only real magic is what you do for the ones you love. And then it cuts to a scene where Emma has a blue glow, confirming that she has real magic and she has this to get her kids back. And we know now from the past episode that her sister was involved in something like this, either losing her kid, if that was accurate, or because of what her mom went through and she raised her, and that was the changeling, you know, per se. So the next part was Cal fighting to the death. Now Cal, I mean, went full, Tyson Fury, went full Mike Tyson. Went full, six. I won't say 6 rounds. That was a TKO. That was an early knock. That was a third round knockout. Cal put Apollo in the boat and asked him if he knew the myth of Callisto, where Zeus turns his son into a bear and then is turned the woman and the son into constellations, which assume is the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. And I just put this together. That is Cal short for Callisto? Is that her story? Because after Cal falls off the cliff, spoiler alert, sorry, Apollo sees the stars moving to like the little or the Big Dipper. And so is Cal short for Callisto? Was that her? And I was also trying to figure out where the woman who left Cal's island on the bigger boat, where did they go? But I actually think that they did not head back to the city, but I believe they went to the underground city. I believe that's probably where they went, whoever was driving the boat. So that's really all I got. I mean, that's the best parts. The rest was a lot of running, yelling, and screaming because, like I said, the episode was only 20 minutes, not including the 6-7 minute recap in the beginning. So, like I said, it looks like it was the continuation of episode 5, titled "This Woman's Work." And for some reason, they decided to make it the finale instead of making an episode that kind of tied everything together and giving us some more clarity on what was happening in the forest. I'm sure they have the footage, right? I'm sure that they shot more than what they showed us, and they're just holding that off for season 2. And I definitely think with the, reception and, the talk of, Lakeith Stanfield possibly getting an Emmy for this, and even Lillian, the mother, her performance and her possibly getting a supporting cast Emmy. So I definitely think it's coming back for season 2. We'll just have to wait and see after award season. Now, the personal consensus of the fans at this point are really upset. And the length and the lack of answers frustrated a lot of faithful viewers. The show had a really, really strong start, and I want to ask you all this: did this show have a horrible season 1 ending? What do you think? Now, coming from the episode, the remaining questions I have coming from this final episode is, what is William? Was he one of the creatures? Was he not? Is he something else? Is he a troll? And what does the whole kindergarten thing was? Where was Apollo's friend Patrice in all this? Is he one of the 10,000? Where was baby Brian? We know that he was supposedly in the park when she went to go find him in the trees, but was he really there? What was that eye thing? Is that a dragon? Is it a giant troll? What was the dragon thing? What was the thing that Apollo made the deal with? Was it the same thing as the dragon? Is that the same thing as William? Like, what happened to Emma's sister and her baby? And were the Quakers that came over the boat fairies, or was it just a fairy on the boat? Or, how does that whole fairy thing work from 1825? So a ton of more questions that need a lot of more answers. And of course, I'd love to know what y'all think. Please put your theories in the comments below. Let's discuss. And I'll probably do a fan theory episode after this. I'll just give it some time to air out and let everybody watch it twice if they want to. So please remember to like and subscribe this video for more Guru